The bell for third period had just rung. The classroom at Yongsan Middle School was warm and filled with soft, late-morning light. Dust particles floated in the sunbeams that fell across worn desks and faded posters of historical timelines. Mr. Lee Jun stood at the front of the room. He was a kind-looking man in his 50s, with glasses and a comfortable sweater. He tapped the chalkboard, where he had written the words, "The Korean War," and "Ordinary Courage." "So, the lesson is not just about armies," Jun said, his voice calm and clear. "It is about people. Farmers, teachers, students, people who had to be brave in a time of great fear. They protected their families. They shared their last bowl of rice. They found strength they did not know they had." He looked at his students. In the front row, Kim Hannah sat perfectly straight, her notes neat and complete. She was a model student, always serious. Beside her, Park Min-soo stared out the window, his mind clearly somewhere else. He was a quiet boy who preferred drawing in his notebook to listening to lectures. Near the back, Lee Young-jae was trying to balance his pencil on its tip, a look of deep concentration on his face. He was the class clown, always moving, always looking for a laugh. Jun smiled. He had been teaching for 25 years. He knew every type of student. "Min-soo," he said gently. The boy jumped and looked back from the window. "Can you tell me one reason why the civilian stories are important?" Min-soo blinked. "Because the history books are full of generals? But the war happened to everyone." "Exactly," Jun said, pleased. "The real story is in the everyday." He was about to continue when Youngji's pencil clattered to the floor. The boy scrambled to pick it up, knocking his books with a loud thump. A few students giggled. Jun was about to speak when he noticed something. The light changed. The bright, clear blue sky visible through the large classroom windows began to darken. It was not the dark of clouds. It was a solid, deep shadow, as if a giant piece of cardboard was being slid over the sun. The giggles stopped. Everyone turned to look. A low sound began. It was not a noise you heard with your ears at first. You felt it in your chest. A deep, vibrating hum that made the floor tremble. The windows in their frames began to chatter softly. Hannah put down her pen. Min-soo stopped drawing. Young-jae froze, half under his desk. Outside, the shadow grew complete. The world went oddly dim like an eclipse. Then they saw the source. Massive ships, black as stone and smooth as glass, blocked the sky. They were immense, bigger than mountains, moving silently and slowly. They had no wings, no lights, no visible engines. They just were. "What is that?" a girl whispered, her voice trembling. No one answered. The school's cheerful noises, the distant shouts from the gym, the chatter from other rooms had vanished. The whole world seemed to be holding its breath. Then a different sound. A sharp, high-pitched whine that dropped into a deafening thump-thump-thump. From the bellies of the black ships, smaller, angular pods shot downwards. They trailed fire and smoke, striking the earth in the city beyond the school grounds. The impacts were silent from this distance, but they saw the plumes of dust and debris rise. An alarm blared through the school hallways. It was a harsh electronic scream they had only ever heard during practice drills. The principal's voice crackled over the speaker, but it was tight with a fear no drill ever had. "Students and teachers, this is not a drill. Shelter in place. Move away from the windows." The classroom erupted into motion and noise. Chairs scraped. Students cried out. Some stood, unsure where to go. Young-jae was just staring, his mouth open. Hannah had her hands clamped over her ears, her eyes wide. Min-soo looked at Jun, his face pale. "Everyone, to the back wall. Now, please move calmly." Jun's voice cut through the panic. He moved quickly, shepherding the students away from the big windows. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat, but he kept his movements steady. This was his classroom. These were his kids. They huddled together against the back wall, a group of 20 teenagers trying to become smaller. Jun stood in front of them like a shield. He looked at their faces, seeing his own terror reflected back at him. Through the window, they saw more drop pods land, these ones closer. Some landed on the baseball field next to the school. The pods hissed open. Figures emerged. They were tall, much taller than a man. They wore armor the color of dull metal. Their limbs were jointed oddly, like an insect's. They carried long, ugly-looking weapons. They moved together in perfect, terrifying unison, spreading out from their pods. Their heads, encased in smooth helmets with no visible face, scanned the school buildings. One of them turned. Its blank helmet seemed to look directly at their second-floor window. In that moment, all sound in the classroom died. The crying stopped. The whispering stopped. Even the frantic breathing seemed to quiet. There was only the faint, ominous hum from the sky and the chilling, rhythmic click-click-click of the aliens' boots on the pavement below, growing louder as they approached the school doors. The classroom was completely, utterly silent. The history lesson was over. A new, unimaginable lesson was about to begin. The silence in the classroom was thick and heavy, like a blanket. It was the quiet of deep, cold fear. No one moved. From their huddle against the back wall, the students and Mr. Lee Jun could only stare at the door. The sounds from outside were now inside. The heavy thud of the main entrance being forced open. The sharp, electronic crackle of a voice that was not human. It spoke in a series of clicks and guttural growls. A translation device somewhere on its body turned the sounds into harsh, simple Korean words that echoed down the tiled hall. Compliance. Order. Line. The clicking footsteps began again. They were in the hallway now. Click, click, click. The sound was methodical, unhurried, and it came closer with every second. It was the sound of something that knew it owned this place now. Young Jae, still on the floor, started to shake. A low, frightened whimper escaped his lips. Hannah, next to him, reached out and grabbed his hand without looking. Her own hand was ice cold, but she held on tight. Min-soo had his eyes squeezed shut, as if he could make it all go away. Jun's mind raced. He had no plan. The shelter-in-place drill said to lock the door and be quiet. The door was locked, but would it hold? He looked around for something, anything, to use as a weapon. There was only a world map on a roller stand, a few textbooks, and a chair. The footsteps stopped right outside their door. Everyone held their breath. A new sound filled the air. It was a high-pitched whine, followed by a soft hiss and the smell of something burning. A thin line of glowing orange light appeared around the edges of the classroom door's lock. The metal doorknob glowed red, then white, and dropped to the floor with a clatter. The door swung inward slowly, filled the doorway. The alien trooper was even taller and broader up close. His gray armor was scarred and matte. It had no face, just a smooth, dark visor where a face should be. Tilted its head, scanning the room. The long barrel of its weapon, a blocky tube with a focused muzzle, swept across the cowering students. A second trooper appeared behind the first. It was the same, perfect, terrifying copy. The first one took a step into the room. Its boot, heavy and segmented, made a loud clack on the linoleum floor. It looked at Jun, who was standing a few feet in front of the students. The translated voice boomed from a speaker on its chest. You, leader, command them. Jun's mouth was dry. He swallowed. We are teachers and students. We are no threat to you. His voice sounded small and weak in the huge quiet. The trooper's head tilted again. It seemed to process the words. All species are threat, or resource. Took another step. Its weapon did not lower. You will comply. You will form a line. You will be processed. Processed for what? Jun asked, the words coming out before he could stop them. The trooper was silent for a moment. Then the flat voice stated, Assessment. Useful biological units will serve. Others will be purified. A gasp went through the students. They understood. Purified. It was a clean, cold word for something terrible. The second trooper moved to the side of the room, its weapon covering the group. The first one gestured with its free hand. Line. Now. No one moved. They were frozen. The trooper took one more step forward. It was now only a few desks away from Jun. Its visor seemed to settle on young Jae, who was still shaking violently on the floor. The boy's fear was a visible signal. You! The weapon's muzzle shifted, pointing directly at young Jay. A low hum powered up from within it, a sound that promised instant, final violence. You move first, or you are first purified. Young Jay let out a choked sob. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't work. Time seemed to slow down. June saw the trooper's finger, a thick, armored digit, tighten on the trigger housing. He saw the utter helplessness on Youngji's face. He saw Hannah trying to pull the boy back. He knew in that crystal-clear moment that words were over. History was no longer in a book. It was happening right now, and it was about to erase one of his students. He had nothing, no weapon, no training, only the instinct that had made him a teacher for 25 years, to stand between the children and the harm. He took a breath, ready to throw himself forward, a pointless human shield against alien metal. A soft voice spoke from the doorway to the adjoining classroom, which had been left slightly ajar. You will not touch him. The voice was calm. It was clear. It held an authority that did not shout. Everyone turned. Ms. Park Myoung stood there. She was the literature teacher from next door. She was in her 40s, always dressed neatly in simple skirts and blouses, her hair always in a tidy bun. She was quiet, known for her love of poetry. She was standing very straight. The lead trooper turned its visor toward her. It saw a small human female, unarmed, her hands empty at her sides. It was not a threat. Its weapon remained pointed at young Jay. You will join the line, or you will be purified. It repeated, the tone almost bored. Miss Park did not join a line. She did not even look at the weapon. She looked at the trooper, and then her gaze flicked to June and the terrified children behind him. In her eyes, June saw something he had never seen before. It was not the fear of a teacher caught in a disaster. It was the cold, focused calculation of a soldier assessing a battlefield. Final warning, the trooper intoned. The hum of its weapon grew louder. Ms. Park Myoung gave a small, almost sad sigh. It was the sound of someone setting down a heavy burden they had hoped to carry forever. Her right hand lifted slowly, as if in a gentle gesture. It went to the simple green jade pin that held her dark hair in its usual bun. Her fingers found the smooth end of the pin. She did not pull it out to let her hair down. Instead, she gave it a precise quarter turn. There was a faint, almost inaudible click. Then, with a fluid motion, she pulled the pin free. But it was no longer just a pin. It had split neatly down the middle, and from its hollow core, she slid out a sliver of folded metal. It was the color of old, polished bone. It was no longer than her finger. She held it up. The alien trooper watched, its head cocked in what might have been confusion. Miss Park Myoung flicked her wrist. The sliver of metal fell, then seemed to catch on an invisible thread. It unfolded. It grew. It lengthened and solidified in the air before her, until she was holding the hilt of a straight, slender sword. The blade was that same milky white, and it glowed with a soft, internal light, illuminating her calm, determined face. The classroom, which had been silent with fear, was now silent with awe. The clicking of boots had stopped. A new sound was about to begin. For a long second, nothing moved. The only sounds were the faint, terrible hum of the alien weapon aimed at young Jay and the ragged breathing of the students. The entire world had shrunk to the classroom, to the two gray troopers, the huddled children, and the teacher with the glowing sword. The lead trooper's blank visor was fixed on the blade. It did not look like any human weapon they had ever seen. It had no edge you could see, just a line of soft white light. It seemed to bend the air around it slightly, like heat rising from asphalt. Then, with a harsh electronic snarl, the trooper made its decision. The threat was not the blade. The threat was defiance. Its weapon, still humming, swung away from young Jay and towards Ms. Park Myoung. She was already moving. She didn't run. She didn't leap. She simply stepped forward, her movements smooth and impossibly fast. It was like watching water flow around a stone. The trooper fired. A bolt of sizzling orange energy shot across the room. It should have hit her center of mass. Mayong was not there. She had shifted her weight a fraction, and the bolt tore past her, blasting a charred, molten hole in the wall where the periodic table used to be. The smell of ozone and burnt plastic filled the air. Before the echo of the shot died, she was inside the trooper's reach. Its weapon was too long for close fighting. It tried to bring the heavy stock down on her head. She raised her left arm, not to block, but to guide the blow harmlessly past her shoulder. At the same moment, her right hand flashed forward. The milky white blade met the gray alien armor at the joint of the trooper's right arm, where the shoulder plate met the torso. There was no loud clang of metal. There was a quiet hiss, like a hot knife cutting through butter, and a sharp pop of discharging energy. The trooper's arm, still clutching the weapon, fell to the floor with a heavy thud. Blue-tinged fluid, not blood, sprayed from the clean, glowing wound. The trooper staggered back, a distorted shriek coming from its vocalizer. The second trooper by the wall finally reacted, bringing its own weapon up. Mayong didn't turn to face it. She dropped into a low spin, her legs sweeping out to kick the wounded trooper's legs from under it. As it crashed to the floor, she used the motion to come up behind the first desk in the row. She pushed it hard. It screeched across the floor, slamming into the second trooper's legs just as it fired. The energy bolt went high, melting a light fixture on the ceiling. Sparks and glass rained down. Mr. Lee Jun finally broke from his shock. "Down! Everyone stay down!" he yelled, shepherding the students lower behind the last row of desks. They watched, eyes wide, as their quiet literature teacher moved like a ghost from a war movie. Mayong was a blur. She vaulted over the desk she had pushed, closing the distance with the second trooper. It tried to aim at her again, but she was too close, too fast. She slapped the barrel of the weapon aside with the flat of her blade, and the following energy bolt blew a hole in the door. With her other hand, she drove the heel of her palm straight into the trooper's chest plate, right over where a human sternum would be. There was a deep thump, not from the impact but from inside the armor. The trooper froze. A network of tiny cracks spread across its chest plate from the point of impact, glowing with the same blue energy as its companions wound. It made a gurgling sound and collapsed, its systems shorted out. The first trooper was struggling to get up, its remaining hand clawing at a panel on its belt. Mayong turned. She saw the movement, saw the trooper pull a small, disc-like object from the panel. A grenade. She didn't hesitate. In one fluid motion, she flung her sword. It wasn't a throw but a precise launch. The blade spun through the air, a wheel of white light. It struck the disc in the trooper's hand. There was no explosion. There was a brilliant, silent pulse of white light that consumed the grenade, the trooper's hand, and then its entire arm up to the shoulder. What was left was not burnt, but gone, as if erased. The trooper slumped, finally still. The white blade, having done its work, clattered to the floor near the door. The soft glow from its length faded. It looked like just a piece of strange, bone-white metal again. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the silence of fear. It was the silence of shock, of a world turned upside down. The only sounds were the sputtering of the broken light fixture and the low, dying whine of the disabled trooper's systems. Ms. Park Mayong stood in the center of the wrecked classroom. She was breathing slightly faster, but her expression was calm. She walked over, picked up her blade, and gave it another flick. It folded back in on itself with a series of quiet clicks, becoming a simple sliver of metal again. She slid it back into the hollow hairpin and twisted it shut. She carefully repinned her bun, though a few strands had come loose. Then she turned to look at Mr. Lee Jun and his students. They stared back at her as if they had never seen her before. The gentle teacher who loved sonnets was gone. In her place was this calm, deadly stranger. Young Jay was the first to speak, his voice a cracked whisper. "Ms. Park, what are you?" She looked at him, then at all their young, terrified faces. She looked at June, who was searching her face for an answer. She walked over to the teacher's desk, ignoring the two fallen alien forms. She picked up a piece of chalk that had rolled there. On the board, next to June's notes about ordinary courage, She wrote 2 words in clear, simple Hangul.
폐쇄 전쟁.
The closed war, June read aloud, his voice hollow. Myaung put the chalk down. She looked at them, her new students in a very different kind of class. It was a war they didn't put in your history books, she said. Her voice was still that of their teacher, but it now carried a weight of experience that filled the room. It ended before most of you were born. With a treaty, a promise to leave us alone. She glanced at the broken door, at the shadow of the ships still darkening the sky outside. They have broken their promise, so the war is no longer closed. The classroom smelled of burnt plastic, ozone, and something sharp and coppery that wasn't human blood. The students couldn't stop staring at the fallen troopers, then at Ms. Park, then back at the troopers. It was too much to understand. Mr. Lee Jun found his voice first. He stepped carefully around a melted desk leg. Myaung, Ms. Park, what is happening? What was that? She was looking out the shattered door into the hallway, listening. The school was not quiet anymore. They could hear distant screams, the occasional burst of alien weapon fire, and the relentless, booming translations ordering compliance. She turned back to them, her face serious but not unkind. A long time ago they came, she said, pointing her chin at the troopers. The Korgan. They said they were explorers. They were not. They are harvesters. They find planets with strong life and they take what they want. People included. She walked to the board and tapped the words she had written. The closed war. It lasted 5 years. It was not fought on television. It was fought in secret by people like me. We were the Ghost Brigades. Our job was to learn how to hurt them, to make taking Earth not worth the cost. We succeeded. Just barely. They agreed to a treaty and left. Minsu spoke up, his voice thin. You were a soldier? Myaung nodded. Captain Park Myaung, 3rd Ghost Brigade. When the treaty was signed, the brigades were disbanded. We were told to disappear, to live normal lives, but to watch. And to be ready in case they ever came back. She touched the jade pin in her hair. This was my mustering order. And my weapon. Hannah, ever practical, pointed a trembling finger at the strange blade, now hidden again. How does it work? Cut through their armor like paper. It is a monofilament blade, Myaung explained. She kept her words simple. The edge is only 1 molecule thick, can cut through almost anything. The power cell inside makes the molecular edge stable and gives it a plasma field. That is the glow. It disrupts their systems when it cuts. Young Jae was staring at her with a whole new kind of awe. That is so cool. Myaung's expression hardened slightly. No, Young Jae. It is not cool. It is a tool for killing. A tool I prayed I would never have to use again. She looked at the fear still etched on their faces. I became a teacher because I was tired of breaking things. I wanted to help build something instead. To help minds grow, not end lives. The sound of more clicking boots echoed from a lower floor. They were getting closer again. The moment of explanation was over. June understood the shift. What do? We can't stay here. We must do 2 things, Myaung said, her voice shifting back to that calm command. We must secure this floor, and we must get a message out. The Korgan will be jamming all normal signals. But this school, it was built for more than learning. What do you mean? June asked. The man who donated the land for this school, Myaung said, a faint, sad smile touching her lips. He was not just a rich businessman. He was a general in the Ghost Brigades. He built this place on top of a decommissioned safe house. For a rainy day, she moved to the teacher's desk and knelt down. She ran her fingers along the underside of the metal frame, near one of the bolts. Finding a specific spot, she pressed hard. There was a soft click. A small, hidden compartment, no bigger than a pencil case, popped open in the side of the desk's thick leg. Inside was a single, flat device with a small screen. It's a low-frequency pulse transceiver, she said, pulling it out. It uses geology, not the air. It sends signals through the rock under the school. Harder to jam. If there are any other listening posts or if any of my old comrades are awake, they will hear this. She powered it on. The screen glowed with a soft green light. Her fingers moved quickly, tapping a code. A single sentence over and over in a language none of them recognized. A call sign, and one word, breach. She looked at June and the students. Now we move. We cannot defend this room. We need a better position, and we need to find others. Hannah stood up, her legs shaky but determined. What can we do? We are not soldiers. Mayang looked at her, and for the first time, a real, approving light came into her eyes. You are survivors. That is the first and most important job. Your job is to stay alive, to listen, and to help each other. Can you do that? Hannah nodded. Min-soo and Young Jae, seeing her bravery, nodded too. The other students, still terrified, began to quietly gather their things. June felt a surge of purpose. He was not a soldier, but he was their teacher. I will help, he said firmly. Mayang gave him a short, respectful nod. Good. Mr. Lee, you know this school better than anyone. Is there a place on this floor that has only one entrance? A storage room? A closet? June thought fast. The old art supply closet. At the end of the hall. It's big, but it only has one door. No windows. Perfect, Mayang said. We get everyone there. It is a defensible point. Then I can move. Move where? Young Jae asked. Mayang's gaze went to the floor, as if she could see through it. To the basement. To the boiler room. If the safe house is still there, even just a little of it, there will be things we can use. Medicine. Maybe more tools. A way to fight back. She picked up a fallen chair and wedged its back under the ruined classroom doorknob, creating a crude barricade for the moment. She then picked up one of the Korgan troopers' long weapons. It was heavy and awkward in her hands. She examined it briefly, then put it down. Too complicated. Their systems are biolocked. Useless to us. She instead picked up the small, disc-like grenade from the second trooper's belt. This, however, is simple. Pressure trigger. She slipped it carefully into her blouse pocket. A lesson for another day, she said, seeing their wide eyes. For now, the lesson is this. Stay behind me, move when I say move, and be as quiet as mice. Are you ready? They weren't. Not really. But they had no other choice. They formed a tight group behind her. Mayang took a deep breath, placed her hand on the chair blocking the door, and listened. The hallway sounded clear for now. The past is back, she whispered, mostly to herself. Time to go to work. Ms. Park Mayang moved the chair from the door with no sound. She peered into the hallway. It was empty, lit by the emergency lights that cast long, gloomy shadows. The usual cheerful signs on the walls looked strange and sad. She turned back and raised a finger to her lips. Her eyes swept over the group. Mr. Lee Jun stood closest to her, trying to look brave for the students. Behind him, Kim Hannah held Youngji's hand tightly, her face pale but set. Park Min-soo hovered near the back, his eyes darting everywhere, taking it all in. The other students clung together, a tight knot of fear. Mayang pointed down the hall to the right, then held up 2 fingers. 20 meters. She pointed to herself, then to her eyes, then down the hall. I will look. She made a flat, pressing motion with her hand. Stay down. They all nodded, understanding the basic gestures. June herded them back against the wall, out of direct sight from the door. Mayang slipped into the hallway. She moved not like a person walking, but like a shadow detaching itself from the wall. She kept close to the lockers, her steps perfectly silent. The students watched from the doorway, holding their breath. The quiet literature teacher was gone. This was someone else entirely. She reached a corner and paused, listening. From a floor below, they could hear the booming, translated voice. All humans to the main hall. Now. There was a crash, followed by a short scream that was cut off too quickly. Hannah flinched, and Young Jae squeezed his eyes shut. Mayang glanced back at them, her expression stern. She pointed to her ear, then shook her head. Do not listen. Focus. She peeked around the corner, then waved them forward. They moved as a group, their shoes sounding terribly loud on the tiles. June tried to step lightly, urging the others to do the same. They reached Myaung at the corner. She pointed to a heavy, unmarked door at the very end of the hall. The art supply closet. Quickly and quietly, she breathed. Go! They scurried down the hall, a line of frightened ducks. Myaung watched the hallway behind them, her body tense and ready. They were halfway there when a door to a staircase burst open behind them. A Korgan trooper stepped out. It was not the methodical scout from before. This one's armor was scored with fresh marks. It held its weapon ready. It saw them immediately. For a split second, everyone froze. The trooper and the line of students stared at each other. Then its weapon began to rise. Myaung did not freeze. She was already moving. She didn't run towards the trooper. She ran past the students, towards the art closet. As she passed the panic-stricken young Jae, she shoved him hard towards the door. "Gio!" she shouted, her teacher's voice breaking through the military calm. The shove broke the spell. The students stumbled into a run. The trooper fired. A bolt of energy smashed into the lockers where young Jae had been standing, melting the metal into bubbling paint. Myaung reached the closet door. It was locked. Without stopping, she spun and kicked the door right next to the handle. The frame, old and wooden, splintered with a loud crack. The door flew inward. "Inside! Now!" she commanded. The students piled in, stumbling over each other in the dark. June was last, pushing the final two in before turning back. "Myaung!" The trooper was advancing, firing again. Myaung ducked behind the broken door frame. Chunks of wood and plaster exploded around her. She looked into the dark closet, saw the students huddling behind canvases and old clay sculptures. They had made it. The trooper was almost at the corner. It would have a clear shot into the room in 3 seconds. Myaung reached into her blouse pocket. Her fingers closed around the cold, disc-like grenade she had taken. She didn't have time to think. She leaned out just enough to see the trooper's location, then underhanded the disc down the hallway toward it. Clattered on the tiles. The trooper looked down at the object at its feet. It recognized its own technology. It began to back away, a rapid electronic chatter coming from its speaker. Myaung pulled back into the closet and slammed the broken door shut. "Down! Cover your heads!" she yelled. She threw herself over Hannah and young Jae, who were closest to the door. There was no loud boom. There was a deep, powerful thump that they felt in their bones. The door bowed inward but held. A wave of intense heat washed over them, followed by a blast of dust and the smell of scorched earth. Then silence. Slowly, Myaung got up. She pushed the door open. The hallway was a mess. A blackened, smoldering crater marked where the trooper had stood. The thing itself was gone, completely vaporized. The walls were streaked with soot. She turned back to the room. The students were coughing, covered in dust, but unharmed. They looked at her, then at the destruction in the hall. The lesson was no longer about poetry or history. "They are strong," Myaung said, her voice rough from the dust. "They have better weapons. They have armor. But they are not invincible. They can be surprised. They can make mistakes." She looked at June. "You asked me what we do. We do what all smart, weak things do against strong bullies. We use our minds. We use this," she tapped her temple, "and we use what they do not expect." She walked to a sink in the corner of the art closet, meant for washing brushes. She turned on the tap. A trickle of brown water came out, then cleared. She splashed her face. "This room is safe for now. The blast will have drawn attention, but it also shows them we are not easy prey. They will be more careful." June found his voice. "You said you needed to go to the basement, to the boiler room." Myaung nodded, wiping her face with her sleeve. "I do, but I cannot leave you here undefended." Her eyes landed on Hannah, Min-soo, and young Jae. "You three, and you, Mr. Lee, you will come with me. The others will stay here, block the door, and be absolutely silent. Do you understand?" The other students, too shocked to argue, nodded mutely. "Why us?" Min-soo asked, his voice small. "Because you are watching. You are thinking, Mayang said. Hannah is a leader. Young Jae, you notice small things. Min-soo, you see the whole picture. And Mr. Lee, you are the heart. You keep them together. I may need that. And you need to see what comes next. She looked at the broken doorway, at the dark, silent school beyond. The lesson in the classroom is over. The real lesson begins now. Follow me and do exactly as I say. Our homework is to survive. The hallway was a tunnel of shadows and smoke. Ms. Park Myung led the way, with Mr. Lee Jun right behind her. Hannah, Min-soo, and Young Jae followed in a tight, silent line. Their world had shrunk to the back of Myung's blouse and the sound of their own heartbeats. They did not go back the way they came. Myung moved in the opposite direction, towards a janitor's closet. She opened it, revealing mops and buckets. Without a word, she pushed these aside. Behind them was a rusty, old grate covering a large air vent. Min-soo, Young Jae, she whispered. Help me. The two boys jumped at the sound of their names. Together, they pulled at the grate. It came loose with a soft squeal of metal that made them all freeze. They listened. No clicking boots answered. The opening was dark and square. Cold, dusty smell drifted out. It goes down one floor, then straight to a shaft near the boiler room. Myung explained, her voice low. It is tight, but it is safe. They will not look here. She went in first, feet first, disappearing into the blackness. There was a soft thump as she landed below. Come on. One at a time. Feet first. Slide. I will catch you. Jun looked at his students. Hannah went next, her face set in determination. Then Min-soo, then Young Jae. Jun took a last look down the eerie, empty hallway and followed, pulling the grate mostly closed behind him. It was a short, scary slide down a sloping duct into a small, dark space. Myung was there, helping each person up. They were in a narrow service corridor, barely lit by a single, flickering bulb on the wall. The air was warmer here, and they could hear the deep, steady thrum of the school's furnace. Myung led them to a heavy, metal door marked Boiler, Authorized Only. It was locked with a thick padlock. Jun felt a flicker of despair. We don't have a key. Myung didn't answer. She went to the wall next to the door. It was made of old, painted cinder blocks. She counted blocks from the floor, then from the corner. On the 7th block up and the 4th block over, she pressed hard with the heel of her hand. There was a quiet click. The entire block recessed inward about an inch. Young Jae gasped. Myung hooked her fingers into the new gap and pulled. The block, which wasn't a real block at all but a perfect, lightweight cover, swung outward on hidden hinges. Behind it was a small, recessed space. Inside was a plain, gray metal box with no markings and a flat black screen. She placed her hand on the screen. It glowed blue, scanning her palm and her fingerprints. A line of green light moved down the screen. There was a series of soft, solid clunks from inside the boiler room door, like heavy bolts sliding back. The padlock fell away, useless. The door swung inward silently. The room they entered was not just a boiler room. The giant, rumbling furnace was there, but the space behind it was larger and cleaner than any school basement had a right to be. The walls were smooth, poured concrete. Housed in neat racks and on shelves were boxes and containers, all gray and unmarked. Myung went to a control panel on the wall. She flipped several switches. Soft, white overhead lights came on, illuminating the hidden room. The ghost brigades believed in preparing for tomorrow, she said quietly. She went to the nearest rack and opened a long, slim container. Inside, nestled in foam, were 5 more of the milky white blade hilts, just like her hairpin. She took one and handed it to Jun. It was cool and surprisingly light in his hand. Twist the middle, pull, she instructed. Jun fumbled, then found the seam. He twisted and pulled. A sliver of white metal slid out. He flicked his wrist as he had seen her do. Nothing happened. Your DNA is not keyed to it, Myung said, not unkindly. It is a safety measure. If they captured our weapons, they could not use them. She took it back, and with a practiced motion, the blade unfolded and glowed in her hand. She reversed the motion, and it became a sliver again. They are tools, not toys. She moved to another shelf. These containers held compact, blocky pistols with grips that looked like they would fit a human hand. She did not hand these out. Pulse sidearms. Simple. Point and shoot. The charge will stun a Korgan, maybe crack their armor if you are close. It will not kill them, but it will give you time to run. She looked at each of them. Running is a good plan. From another box she took out small, flat discs like thick stickers. Medical patches. Put one on a cut, a burn. It will clean it, seal it, and ease the pain. She gave 2 to Hannah. You are in charge of these. Finally, she went to a large cabinet. Inside were what looked like ordinary gray school uniforms, but the material was thicker. Body sleeves. They will not stop a direct hit from their weapons, but they can deflect some energy, protect you from shrapnel and falls. She handed one to each of them. Put them on over your clothes. Now. They did as they were told, turning their backs for a little privacy. The material was light and clung strangely to their bodies, like a second skin. It made them feel a little safer. Mayang herself strapped on a simple belt with a holster for one of the pistols and a pouch for extra blade hilts. She looked like a teacher again, but one ready for a very dangerous field trip. We do not take this stuff to start a war, she said, looking at their young, serious faces now peeking out from the high collars of the gray suits. We take it to survive a war that has already come to us. Our job is to protect the others upstairs, to keep a safe path open, and to keep sending our signal until help comes. She handed June one of the pistols. He looked at it with dread, his teacher's hands feeling all wrong holding it. I don't know how to use this. Point the end without the grip at the bad thing, Mayang said, her tone almost like it was a grammar lesson. Safety is here. It is on. Leave it on unless you have no other choice. Your best weapon is your voice, Mr. Lee. Your words kept them calm in the classroom. That is more powerful than you know. She turned to the door. We go back up. We get the others. We move everyone to a safer location, maybe the gym storage. Then we watch and we wait. Young Jay, emboldened by the strange suit and the hidden room, spoke up. Wait for what? Mayang listened. Above the rumble of the furnace, they all heard it now. A new sound, deep and thunderous, rolling across the sky from far away. It was not the hum of the Korgan ships. It was the sharp, tearing roar of jet engines. A faint, real smile touched Mayang's lips for the first time. We wait for the cavalry. The sound from the sky changed everything. The deep, familiar roar of human fighter jets cut through the strange hum of the alien ships. It was the sound of home fighting back. In the basement, the small group felt the shift immediately. Mr. Lee Jun saw the tight line of Ms. Park Mayang's shoulders relax. Just a little. Youngji's face, pale with fear all morning, broke into a wobbly grin. They came, he whispered. Mayang held up a hand. They are engaging the main ships. That means the troops on the ground will be confused. Their orders will change. This is our chance. We move, and we move fast. They left the hidden room, closing the heavy door behind them. The bolts slid back into place with a final sounding thud. The secret was safe again for now. Getting back to the art closet was quicker. The school was in chaos, but a different kind. They could hear the Korgan translation boxes blaring with new urgency. Regroup. Central command. Priority override. The clicking boots were no longer hunting. They were retreating, moving toward the stairwells. Mayang led them through the service corridors, avoiding main halls. When they reached the broken art closet door, she gave a soft, bird-like whistle. From inside, a scared voice whispered, Ms. Park, it's us, June called back, his voice warm with relief. They filed into the closet. The other students were safe, huddled together. Seeing June, Hannah, Min-soo, and young Jay in their strange gray suits made them gasp. But the sight of their familiar faces was more comforting than anything. We have to go to the gymnasium storage lockers, Mayang announced. It is the strongest building. One entrance, no windows, near an exit. We will be safer there until the fighting passes. No one argued. They were a group of 20 now, a quiet flock following their shepherd. Myung at the front, June at the back. They moved through the hollow, echoing school. They passed signs of struggle, overturned tables, a forgotten shoe, but saw no more troopers. As they neared the gym, a figure stepped out of a classroom doorway. It was Mr. Kim, the elderly lunch server. He was holding a large metal soup ladle like a club. When he saw Myung, his eyes widened. Then he saw her belt, the gray suit. He didn't look surprised. He simply gave a slow, grim nod and lowered his ladle. "Captain," he said quietly. "You kept watch, Sergeant?" Myung replied, a hint of respect in her tone. "I did. The custodian, Mr. Bay, is securing the west exit. He has his old toolkit." Mr. Kim said this like it meant something special. Myung nodded, understanding. "Fall in with us. We are heading to the gym storage." Mr. Kim, without another word, slipped into the line of students, placing a comforting hand on a young boy's shoulder as he did. He was one of them, too. They reached the gym. The huge space was empty, the basketball net still and sad. The storage room was a massive metal cage at the far end. Myung and Mr. Kim used their strength to pull the heavy rolling door up just enough for everyone to crawl under. Inside, it was dark and smelled of old leather and sweat. It was safe. Myung did not come in. She stood at the opening. June turned to follow the last student in, but stopped when he saw her face. "You are not staying?" he asked. "I must make sure the path is clear. I must link up with Kim and Bay. We will create a perimeter," she said. She looked past him, at the students finding spots to sit in the dim light. Hannah was already organizing the medical patches. Minsu was peering through a vent, watching the gym. Young Jae was whispering to a younger student, telling them it would be okay. "You have them, Mr. Lee," Myung said softly. "My job was to break the siege. Your job is to hold the peace. Keep them calm. Keep them together. That is the most important fight now." June looked at the pistol still in his hand, a cold, alien weight. He held it out to her. "I think you need this more than I do." She looked at it, then shook her head. "Keep it. But I hope you will not need it." She reached into her pouch and pulled out one of the spare blade hilts. She pressed it into his other hand. "Hide this. If the day ever comes when you must teach a different kind of lesson, you will know." He closed his fingers around the cool metal. Felt like a secret, like history. Outside, the sound of battle grew louder. The shriek of jets, the deeper thunder of alien weapons returning fire. Then, a new sound, the rhythmic thumping of helicopter blades, growing close. Myung listened, her head tilted. "Our ride is here," she said. She gave June one last look, the teacher and the soldier both visible in her eyes. "The lesson is over, Mr. Lee. The work begins." She pulled the rolling door down with a soft, final rumble, sealing them in safety. Through the small gaps at the bottom of the door, June saw her boots walk away, calm and steady, toward the sound of the helicopters and the ongoing war. Inside the dark storage room, June turned to his students. Their faces were pale smudges in the shadows, looking to him. He put the pistol and the blade hilt carefully on a high shelf. He did not need them right now. He needed his voice. "All right, everyone," he said, his teacher's voice finding its familiar, gentle strength. "Let's take attendance. Let's make sure we are all here." One by one, voices called out in the dark. "Here. Present. I'm here." It was the most ordinary sound in the world. And in that moment, in the heart of the chaos, it was the most powerful weapon of all. The work of being human had begun again.